Okay, so today we are going to be talking about basic data types and variables. I'm going to start off here by commenting like we did before, AP basic data types. I'm going to save this folder. Python. This is going to be AP basic data types .py, save, and we got our color going on for our Python script. So let's look at the different types of data that we have. We have numbers. And numbers can be whole numbers like 1, 2, 3. Let's go numbers. And then we can also have floating numbers, which would be numbers with a decimal point. Something like that. So any of these numbers are still considered numbers. They're just floating numbers, whereas these up here are whole numbers. Sometimes you'll want to use one over the other. And if you do want to have something that's a floating number, you do have to usually add a decimal point so it knows to calculate it out like that. Next we have strings. So strings are going to be inside of quotation marks. So we can say hello, that is a string. We can say hello, how are you doing? That is also a string. It's connected as one, even though it's multiple words. All this would be considered one string. And then sometimes, let's say you wanted to make this inside of quotation marks and you wanted to print out the quotation marks for your string, you can do single quotes instead to do that. And you can use single quotes for any set of strings. I usually use the double quotes unless I need to use the single quotes for something. So, or the double quotes for something, so I'll use the single quotes instead. So, be hi. So then when I do it like this, this whole part here would be considered string rather than just being the word hi. Okay, so the next number, the next thing that I want to look at is booleans. So with booleans, it's either true or false. So you are checking to see if something is true or false. A lot of the times you can represent this as a 1 or 0. So we can say that 1 is true and 0 would be false. So it's kind of like a shorthand of writing true or false. It's just saying 1 or 0 for a Boolean and a count, or not a count, but a Boolean data type. Next, we have lists. So So lists are collections of data types, so we can have a collection of numbers. So we can have 1, 2, and 3. So now we have access to, with a single data type, 3 values gathered together. So this could be useful if you need to have a whole bunch of variables, but you don't want to create a variable for every single one of them. Each one of these will have an ID number associated with it, 0, 1, 2, representing for the 1, 2, 3 going here. And we'll look more at lists in detail in the future, but I just want to show you guys the basic types of data types that we're going to be using with. I don't want to go more than this at this point, just because I want to keep it simple for the 101 section of tutorials. And I think this is a good starting point. So typically when you're using these, you don't have to necessarily all the times, but a lot of times you're using them associated with a variable. So if you wanted to take a number type of variable and assign it to something, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it, let's do something basic, num1. So it's our first number variable, and it's going to be equal to 1. We can do num2 is equal to 5.5. So you get to have anything at all you want to call it and equal to that numeric value. We can now look at strings, and it's really similar. We just tell it str for string 1 is equal to hello. And that would be how you assign a variable to that string right here. So str1 is now going to be hello. Bool1 is going to be equal to true. And list1 is going to be equal to 1, 2, 3. So that would be how we would assign variables to any of these things, any of the data types that we are looking at here. If you wanted to actually be able to execute this into a piece of code, we can do, let's just do a print. And in here, I'm just going to tell it to print num2. I'm going to copy everything, bring it back into Maya, and let's clear the history so that we can see it work. Highlight everything and run it, and you can see that it prints out the 5.5 value because we told it to print num2, and num2 is equal to 5.5. In the next lesson, we'll actually look at how to make this go a little bit further, so that way we can actually maybe add two numbers together and print the value of that number, or bring strings together and put a whole phrase together from separate strings, and other fun things like that using operators. So we'll see you in the next lesson.